What's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to another edition of our Super Rugby recap on the Bonus Point podcast, brought to you by Macro Butter, OsteoStrong LA, and Whalebird Kombucha. My name is TJ Olsen, and I am joined by none of the only Novel Capote, aka Tavita Halafia, and we've got James Tesserero on the call as well. What's up, boys? We missed last week. I'm glad to have you guys on the call. What's going on?
Salutations. What's happening, fellas? I missed you.
I missed you boys too.
It's been a long week. We haven't had the opportunity to chat about rugby, but we literally just finished watching the Blues game, getting stuck into chatting about that. So let's just go straight into that, because I want to talk about something. Hulla's got something he wants to get James's opinion on. He's got some questions he's got to ask. But the game that just ended, the Blues versus the Highlanders, it was a pretty one-sided affair with the Blues coming away with the win. Just before we get into the talking points, what were your thoughts about the game overall, Hulla?
Look, man, it just goes by what I said in our first episode. I think the Blues are definitely going to be the primary team this year to shake it up. I think they're playing a brand of football and rugby right now that will be found difficult to play against. And for as beautiful and as awesome as the Crusaders are, everything's got a time limit. And I think maybe for the Super Rugby Aotearoa competition, their time could be up this year.
And James, what were your thoughts about the Blues game?
Mate, two big takeaways. The first one was that I didn't understand how good the Blues pack was. You kind of,
you
think about the Blues, you think about like some pretty dynamic back rowers and some freakish outside backs, but the tight five just dominant in this game in particular, and like just very dynamic and hard and set a good platform.
Dare I say, reminiscent of the 1996 Auckland Blues outfit?
I mean,
possibly the greatest Auckland Blues team of all time.
I mean, I think it would be up there, considering, like, you look at their pack, it's basically all Blacks. Like, you can't James Lay is the one person who's coming off the benches in the front row who's not an All Black or an international test player, and he still rips. Like, he's insane when it comes to in the scrum. He can hold his own. But well, let's talk about the backs, because Hulla, I know you have a question you want to ask James. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the triple playmaker setup, but you wanted to talk about Otedi specifically, so I'll hand it over to you. What do you want to pick James's brain about?
Well, look, I think right now we're watching like a renaissance of fly halves throughout the Super Rugby series, both in Aotearoa and the Australian competition. My personal opinion is that Otedi Black right now is the premier fly half, just pipping Richie Mo'unga. So my question to James is the pretty much the quintessential question that people want to ask is, what is it right now that's the flavor of international rugby teams and club teams? Is it your classic number 10, which is what we're seeing with Otedi Black, or is it the guys like Richie Mo'unga, who literally are the greatest attacking weapons that we've seen in rugby probably ever?
Well, mate, I'm always wearing my Wallabies cap. So if I'm thinking about what I'm most fearful of as a Wallabies fan playing the All Blacks, you're kind of looking at Otedi Black as your traditional kicker and passer and a playmaker. And he tends to make the guys outside of him very dangerous. So if you've got some like freakish outside backs like the All Blacks do, having Otedi Black as a playmaker can be a problem. However, Richie Mo'unga, his running game, anytime your forward pack is getting parity or a little bit of dominance, he's almost indefensible when he's on the front foot with the retreating defense. So given the fact that the Wallabies probably going to struggle to meet the All Blacks up front, I probably fear Mo'unga a little bit more, and I'd be happier to see Otedi Black as the All Blacks 10.
Okay, so then would that as a coach, who would you rather as your 10 personally, if you were choosing a team right now with what we've seen from both players?
Well, they're very contrasting styles, like we said, but I think as a coach, I like to pick my very best players first and then kind of mold the style of your game around those. And given that's the case, I'd probably pick Mo'unga first and then try to select guys around him who enhance his game.
I definitely hear what you're saying, Hulla. Like it's Otedi. He comes here from that traditional standpoint. He is a great fly half, and he would be put in when he's put in that position. He would be a great addition to the team. But I'll go into it a little bit further when we talk about the Crusaders. But Richie, he just brings so much to the table, and he's able to manipulate so many different things for your team that I think I would go with the same process with James. As I would probably select him and then a couple other pivotal pieces, and then mold my team around them.
Well, okay, so this is great because here's my query is the All Blacks are now missing a 12 and 13 combination that mixes well with their 10. We're seeing either a great 10 with a 12-13 that don't combine too well, or a 12 and 13 that combine really well that don't really click with the 10. So what we haven't seen, though, is that for a long time is, all right, let's just play a 10. Who's a 10? That's all he is. And then let's mold that classic 10. And, now we're talking like Carlos Spencer, Mertens era. And then we can play a 12 and 13 off whatever game style we're trying to play. Because we're facing a fact now, and the All Blacks are, where Rico Ioane is going to be their 13. It's inevitable. That's what it is. However, at 12, they don't know whether to play a Goodhue. They don't know whether they want to play a Laumape. They don't know whether. Do you know what I mean? So now we're seeing all these questions asked.
Yeah.
And for mine, I think Otedi Black at 10 is possibly the better option to have someone that's got a clear mind and a calmness about them that your Andrew Mertens had. And you know what? On the Wallaby front, Stephen Larkham had, where he was like, just controlled the game how he needed to control it. So that's why I'm asking, because, I'm going to go opposite you guys, and I'm going to go with Otedi Black. I think that's what we were talking about off camera, is that like I think that's what they were trying to do with Josh Ioane. Like that's why they warehoused him as you would, and then tried to get him those All Blacks caps, and then now he turned into that traditional 10 they were looking for. But he hasn't really panned out as well as they thought he would be. So I think if they got Otedi Black in the system, which I think they probably will do this coming season, they'll definitely be able to have that versatility going to a traditional 10 or a playmaking or a running 10 and that kind of thing. So I think it's definitely going to be interesting. It's not. I don't necessarily think it's going to be bad for the All Blacks to get those options, but it's just going to it's going to pan out as successful as they want it to be. We'll see. Yeah. But we'll move on. We'll end the recap about that game with James. I want to come to your expertise again because we all just watched the game and we were scratching our heads around the forward pass that happened when the TMO reviewed that. So this one is going to sound pretty interesting because I'm going to say Ioane a lot because a lot of Ioanes were involved in this play. So you've got Akira Ioane was defended by Josh Ioane, and then Akira threw a pass back to Rico Ioane, and then the ball, according to our logic, left his hands backwards, but it was called back. So, James, can you walk us through what you saw from the referee's point of view and why we think he got it wrong?
Yeah, well, without going too much into physics and inertia, what the referees are supposed to be looking for is the action of the hands relative to your body. And I thought we all agreed that the hands were moving from front to back, and his hands kind of finished behind his body, and that makes it a backwards pass. I remember thinking at the time that this is one of the best examples of inertia, showing a backwards pass traveling about 6 meters forward. And as soon as I heard the TMO intervene, I go, the more they look at this, the more they're going to decide this is forward. And they should have just gone with what they saw in real time. And that was backwards out of the hands. But when you slowed it down, you're not supposed to look at lines in terms of whether it's a forward pass or not. The refs and the TMOs are supposed to ignore the line markings on the field. But if you have a look at the line markings, there's about a 5 or 6 meter difference where it traveled forward. But no, I think that's a try.
Yeah, well, I think totally agree. Too, well, out of his hands, he literally he's facing backwards when he passes
exactly.
the ball through. So the motion is always going to be back, and I think obviously I agree with you. I was just like, That's what I mean. This guy's at full pace. Physics.
Yeah.
This is physics, guys. Physics.
Read a book.
Did you fail physics in high school? Did you take physics in high school?
I am going to be totally honest. I didn't take physics in high school, so I can stand out of that conversation. I took biology. Does that count? I think I can add biology into it. It's a type of science.
It's a science.
I think that was a rare occasion, though. We don't often see somebody moving at such high speed past so long infield. And that makes that a really good example that I think they're going to be showing at level 1 referee courses all over the world.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I think the good thing as well is that the New Zealand referees, they come together as a group. They have their Zoom call every Monday, and they come through and they review all this stuff. So I don't assume that these calls are going to go unanswered, because most likely there's going to be a bunch of Blues fans that are going to be getting on the horn and complaining about that one going away, even though they lost. They pumped them, but it's
100%. With all the listeners we get in Tom Kimakoto, they're gonna be infiltrated with. They're like, do you listen to the bonus point? Yeah. Coach James is breaking this down.
That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have Coach's Corner coming soon, so we'll have the breakdown coming.
Starting a revolt. This is a people's game.
We're gonna anytime we fly back into New Zealand, referees are just gonna be waiting at Auckland Airport, going, "Yeah, I want to have a chat with you." Well, credit to the Highlanders on having a crack against the strong Blues outfit. We've spoken about it before. The Blues are always known as having a pretty strong backline, but the Highlanders had to battle a team with basically an all-black forward pack, while the Highlanders are also missing 3 of their front rowers. So let's move on to talk about the Chiefs and the Crusaders, and let's be quick about this one because this loss still really hurts. So I don't really want to talk about this one too much. So the Crusaders have now won 39 out of their 40 games. And there were 2 players, me personally, who I thought had a tremendous impact on this game. It was Lester Ganuku and Richie Double Pump Mwanga is now his nickname for me. I've created that one. But before we talk about the gameplay, I want to get you guys, try or no try on that backflip try, the one that they had to review for the TMO. Hulla, I'll go with you first. Do you reckon it was a try? You reckon it was a try? James, do you reckon it was a try?
I had no try. I thought that his feet bounced on the grass out of bounds, and I thought you could see like the feet change direction. And
here's the thing: James just wants that just so he wants reference for one of the greatest tries that's going to be scored against the Wallabies in about 3 to 4 months.
Well, the same logic goes for the forward pass try we saw this afternoon. Part of me wants that to be allowed because that was a spectacular try that I want to see again and again. Mm-hmm. And the fact that that's called back nullifies that a little bit. But Mackenzie did extremely well to come out of nowhere to force that.
Right. And you know what? That was the best tackle you could have made at that. Like, you couldn't have not have made that tackle any better. That's George Gregan on Wilson years ago. That was it. That's the play. That's how you do it.
Mackenzie's been doing that for I think his past 5 games he's played, he's had to make a sweeping tackle like that, and just the amount of force he's able to get out of his body and how quickly he's able to get across that field, it's insane.
Shoulder to chest, full body, he made that was the greatest tackle. But on your point, James, there's a part of me too that I definitely can see that. I definitely can be like, oh, but is there insurmountable proof? The answer is no.
I don't think so, because when I look at it, I critique it and I sit there and I go, oh, that blade of grass is changing because his foot is technically dragging across it. But is that really proof, or is that just my perception going, come on, I want the Chiefs to win? So that's
if for me personally, if I could see his toe or his ankle at least
something evident,
a significant movement, then I'm more than happy to be like, yes, 100% no try. I'll be honest, my initial response was no try. But the more that one of those very few moments, the more that they played it, I was like, man, you can't say it isn't a try.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just a lonely Chiefs fan grasping at straws. So, but
Chiefs are my team too, but I bet against them.
Man,
I'm about my money, bro.
That hurts me. That hurts me to my core, Hulla. I'm just gonna brush past that one, but
I want to Brisbane Broncos.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. But I want to talk about Richie for a second because we were talking about him before. The thing for me was the amount of defenders he was able to manipulate with just like a little double pump or just a little step, something so simple. But when it comes to the Crusaders, that's what sets them apart. But also when it comes to their gameplay, their forward pack. So you could see in the first 20 minutes, they were really struggling. The Chiefs were bringing it to them hardcore. But when they're struggling, they're always able to lean on their scrum to get them back into that flow. So that's something that is able to get them that penalty or that go forward. So obviously, they both serve a purpose and they're all amazing at what they do. But James, I want to ask you, when it comes to the Crusaders, in your opinion, who provides more of, I guess, benefit to their team? Would it be the backs or the forwards?
Well, when you give a back line like this credit for carving up, it's usually coming off the back of some good forward dominance, and that was the case the other night. And then if you have, especially the way the Super Rugby, the way it's refereed these days is retreating teams have got to make a real effort to get back to the last feet before they can progress forward. So that's giving guys like Mwanga another half second of time and space. And off the back of a forward pack which is rolling and a defensive team which is working that extra bit to get back to that offside line, someone like Mwanga is almost unstoppable. So I think I'd probably have to say that the back line is the big X factor there and probably the biggest key to their success.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the Chiefs, they started off really strong. But just like a lot of Crusaders games, they struck back hard in the second half. And although they ended up losing the match, the defensive effort in the first half by the Chiefs was something that really made me proud to be a Chiefs fan. I was watching that and I could sit there and I was getting hyped. Yeah, it was great. But I've been hearing some people complaining about the refereeing. We were talking about referees prior. I personally believe the referee did quite a good job. He was playing advantage quite well. James, we spoke about it when the game was being played during broken play. I also thought that majority of the time they pinged the Chiefs with their poor discipline. So I think that was a good call. The Chiefs weren't very disciplined in that game. But there was a couple of calls that, like the Brad Weber tackle. I think when they went to the TMO, they didn't really look at basically the body composition and the orientation of what happened. You could clearly see, in my opinion, that his arm swung into another arm. It didn't touch the ball. But I really think it was the disciplines that let the Chiefs down. So, Hulla, if you had to pick a reason about why the Chiefs lost this one, what would you go to?
I mean, it's the same thing that's happened the last, 17 games? 8 games is just ill discipline.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, here's the thing. Fatigue plays a big factor in making the wrong decision. So maybe we can look into the conditioning a lot. At Super Rugby level, I just don't like to think that conditioning is ever going to be a factor. So if we're going to rule that out, then you're just going to have to think about its ill discipline. And we can't talk about inexperience because, they've got quite the experience in that team. So, it just comes down to, I think for me, the Chiefs at the moment are really trying to rush a lot. And they're trying to sort of solve a problem by being fast and not being logical or being tactful in their decision making. And so, I mean, it's confusing because this has never been a problem. And this is very, very real. Like, Liam Messham's in your team and you're not even giving up that many penalties. So, for it to be a problem now, unfortunately, and I don't like to say this, is like maybe the coaching methods are a little dated. Maybe the gameplay that they're trying to play, how they started like that last week, and they can't play like they've proven they can't do that for 80 minutes. So what is it? Is it player personnel that they're bringing off the bench? Is it the coaching staff aren't having that same dynamic off the, you want your bench to come on and you want your bench to be even more dynamic than what happened in that first 15. And if they're not better one-on-one, they're definitely better as a collective. Is that a question we need to ask? Is it gameplay? Because at the moment, it almost seems like a sevens game for the first 20 minutes and the Chiefs are just making a mockery of their opposition, but their long game is nowhere to be seen. So they're playing checkers and everyone else is playing chess.
Yeah. It's true because even when I watched the post game interview with Patrick Tuipulotu when he was talking about how you can never like cross someone off because the Chiefs were up in the game and then they ended up losing. So I think it's definitely something they may need to address. I think when it comes to the coaching, excuse me, from what I've heard, Clayton McMillan's making a good impact. So I hope that is something that it isn't the case, because if they go through the Clayton McMillan era and they try and look for pointing the finger at the coach, that's 3 coaches in bloody 2 years. So that wouldn't be a good look, but we'll see. But the Chiefs now approach a crossroad, because if they don't defeat the Hurricanes next week, they will have the worst losing streak a New Zealand team has ever had in Super Rugby, and 8-game losing streak.
And this is what I mean, though. It was like you just said earlier, you don't want that, 3 coaches going through, but you also get the Daryl Gibson era of the Waratahs too, and you don't want that either. So this is like and I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not being mean, but like this is where you're at right now. Do you know what I mean?
It kind of sounds like you're being mean just because there's a Waratahs fan on the chat. Like, come on.
Oh well, no, that's not. I'm not, but I'm just saying this is the dilemma a professional team has. And I think too, it's exacerbated that you're playing the best teams in Super Rugby across both years. So this does I think if the stats, if we were playing a proper Super Rugby competition, I think we'd be a little nicer to the Chiefs.
I knew where this was going. You played the Western Force twice a year and your record would be play the Waratahs at the moment and your for and against looks a bit healthier. I understand.
We're coming halfway of the season. We're going, we're above 500. Here we go. Let's do it. Oh, man. All right. Well, just before we move on to Super Rugby AU, speaking of those teams, James, is there anything you want to add to round us off? Are you good?
Oh, mate, I just think that every time I watch the Chiefs, they seem to build a lead and get run down. And I think you guys have mentioned that. And I'm not sure if that's just the games I tune into, but they always seem to kind of look amazing and then fall apart. And, you've got to ask some pretty tough questions.
Well, I really hope it doesn't turn out to be that they are the worst losing team in New Zealand history, because that would really kill me. But let's move on. Let's talk about Super Rugby AU, because this week it was First Nations Week, where they honour and celebrate the Indigenous people of Australia. There were a lot of amazing First Nation jerseys, interviews of Indigenous people. I really like the Andy Muirhead one. That I think that was really, really well interviewed and filmed. I really think Super Rugby AU and Stan Sport are doing a great job with that. James, I want to come to you first, because I know you've spent a lot of time with Indigenous communities in Australia. You've obviously grown up in Australia. How important is something like First Nations Week for Super Rugby and Australia as a country?
It's obviously hugely important. I feel as a code in Australia, we're probably we are certainly behind the other codes in terms of kind of Indigenous participation, having the sport as a part of the Indigenous culture. And I spent a lot of time, like you mentioned, up in the Northern Territory, and there's a very strong Indigenous rugby community up there. I'm currently coaching at Randwick, which has a very rich history of Indigenous rugby, and a couple of outstanding young Indigenous players coming through right now. So it's probably maybe potentially too late for this kind of thing, but it's certainly a good acknowledgement. Having the young woman sing the anthem in Aora Indigenous language a couple of months ago, another huge statement, which was a positive. But at the moment, we're still behind rugby league and Aussie rules in terms of kind of a sport that Indigenous Aussies kind of really relate to.
And Hala, I think you've mentioned that as well. We've spoken about it. You're obviously a very proud Indigenous man with your Tongan heritage. You've worked quite a bit also with Indigenous peoples of Australia. But the comparison to rugby union and rugby league for Indigenous communities, like James said, we are quite behind in the sport. So when it comes to First Nations Week, what are your thoughts?
I think it was awesome. This should have happened, at least 10 years ago, 100%. But I think the fact that they're really making an effort at the moment, it's a step forward. And, all you can ask for is, step by step. Do I think a greater effort needs to be made? 100%. And you know what, that comes with reaching out too. So I think as a business, Rugby Australia have done really well, and I look forward to seeing their future, their future steps forward. But I'd like to see an Andrew Walker back in the mix. Maybe helping, or I've completely blanked right now. Jim
Williams.
Jim Williams. I'd like to see, some of the elder Indigenous fellas that have really represented at a high level and done a lot for their community. But, get that olive branch to, come in and really just explain a lot more. I think a lot needs to be done within the organization. But I think this is a great step forward. And I think you know what? The jerseys, everything that it came with is beautiful. But, we're in 2021. Let's really make an effort right now.
Yeah. I think the jerseys were really cool. I think who was the captain that stepped in for the Brumbies? The number 7. I can't remember his name. He was when he was doing his pre-game interview, he was talking about like the significant little pieces on the jersey that signified certain things, that signified elders or different places in their areas. So I think that's something really cool. I feel me as a Māori man, really loving my culture and seeing those types of things when the Māori All Blacks play, or when just in New Zealand culture in general. I love that stuff when they go back to their Indigenous roots. They support those types of communities. It's something that I really hope they move forward and do more. But let's get cracking and talking about the rugby being played. And I want to talk about the Rebels first. So they went up against the Western Force and ended up it being a very low scoring game. But when it comes to the Rebels, I believe they're an average or above average rugby side that can go toe to toe with some of the AU sides. However, I believe that they do lean quite heavily on some guys. And I think Corabetti is one guy that they lean on quite heavily, and rightly so, because he's a bloody phenomenal, amazing player who provides a lot for this team. But I've been seeing a lot in the media about him potentially going overseas and playing, getting an overseas contract over in Japan or France, because people just want to throw money at him. So I want to talk hypothetically just for a second. If a club in Japan or France is able to get a hold of Corabetti and he leaves the Rebels, Hulla, I'll come to you. Do the Rebels still pose a threat?
Going off their recruitment, no. I can't see them being a threat at all. Yeah, no.
James, do you agree with that? Do you think if Corabetti leaves the fold, do you think that the Rebels will still pose a threat or no?
I don't think that they're a contender this year. I think the Reds and the Brumbies are 1 and 2 in some order. I think the Rebels are clearly 3rd, and then the Force and the Waratahs are 4th and 5th in whichever order. So I think there's now, after enough rounds, I think there's a very clear hierarchy. I think if you took Corabetti out of the Rebels, they're much weaker and they're further away from the top guys. And then if you took Tamura away from the Rebels, I think they're the Western Force, a younger Western Force.
Yeah. Wow.
James. So I was sitting there and I heard you say that, and I wanted to be like, oh, I can't believe you're saying that, but that's probably the best comparison that someone could use. You want to be like, don't hate, but you're like, that's pretty accurate. Okay, let's stick with that. But speaking of the Devil, let's talk about the Force, because I don't think anyone can argue that they're technically a bad team with bad talent. They have a lot of talent, whether it's older statesmen or younger guys coming up. But in my opinion, I think it's their execution and decision making that holds them back from getting out of this losing slump. And I don't think it's all over the pitch. I think specifically when it's in when they're in their 22 about to try and score. So out of all the attempts this season, when they're in the 22, they end up with no points 65% of the time. And I think majority of the time they're looking for a line-out maul, or it's just poor execution by their back line. If you're in the 22 and you're executing 65% with no points, I mean, that's the finger on the pulse right there. So, James, if you had to put a finger on why the Force are not getting that first win, what would you say it would be?
They did get their first win against my Waratahs.
They beat the Waratahs, bro.
My apologies. No, it's okay. So winning slump, I would say. So like, how are they able to consistently get that?
I think they look like a team which is short on combinations, which is probably to be expected. And the pressure is at its most when you're inside the opposition's 22, their wingers up, and you have 14 bodies in front of you. And there's more consequences to any mistakes. And that's when kind of combinations either serve you well or let you down. And I think there seems to be some signs that the Force are short on combinations. And if they stay healthy and if they hang in there, I think they'll build quite well through this season. And they're playing against some teams that have had their core together for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And the Force kind of were scratched together last year and started building a little bit. And I wouldn't be surprised if they reel off a few upsets towards the second half of the season.
When it comes to combinations, I actually want to ask a question to both of you is now with Kurandrani in the mix, who would you prefer now that Kurandrani's at that 13 spot? Would it be Richard Kahui and Braki, who played most of 13 last season, or would you prefer the combination that they're working with at the moment?
Do you want to go first?
I mean, me personally, I probably prefer Kurandrani at 13. The only reason why I say that is I think he's looking really good this year. He's definitely lost a few kilos. He's definitely faster. And his wisdom at that level and international level, you really, with no offense, I mean, he's the best guy for it, right? You're going for rugby IQ over everything. And I just think that right now they either need to get a world-class 9 or a world-class 10, and we're going to start seeing different results. Especially coming into, because I agree with everything that James said. They just need someone just to lead that pack around that's been there, done it, put the points on, stayed calm, did it again and again and again.
Yep,
so James, for me,
James, do you agree with that?
Yep, I think you need to keep an eye on. So we've got experience. They've got Kahui at 12, Kurandrani at 13, and then Kearney at fullback. That's a lot of age and experience in some pretty key positions. Keep an eye on Jake McIntyre, who's just returned from Vermont. And until I saw him, I'd lost track of where he'd gone. And the reports out of the French rugby was that he was a very, very good starting player for one of the best teams in Europe. So he started a lot of games. I think he was behind Cami Lopez, the French 10 at stages, but he started a lot of big games for one of the best teams in Europe. So I think he maybe establishes himself as their 10 for the second half of the season.
And
sorry, Holland. You go ahead.
No, you're right, bro.
Who's the winger that plays for the Western Force, the young winger that had like a cracking season last season? What was his name?
I know the guy you mean, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but do you think that he has potential to try and crack this Wallabies outfit, or do you think there's just too many good outside backs in the Brumbies and the Reds and Corabetti as well?
I think it's pretty competitive at wing, especially if you put Vunivalu in, and we've talked a little bit about warehousing. I'm pretty sure the Wallabies will get him on the field at some stage this year.
No, he's not the Fiji, bro. He's playing the Fiji, bro. Leave the players alone, man.
Yeah,
that's a bit rich from an All Blacks fan, mate. We won't get into this, but
we'll be debating all day on this one. We've got the two. What did you say? The three best academies. Yeah. Good old Eddie Jones. I love him.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Right. I love you, Eddie Jones. Okay. All right. Well, no bonus point segment today, but we're going to jump right into our final game, which is the Reds versus Brumbies, and we're going to talk a bit about this one because this one was a cracker. So this was obviously the finals rematch from last year's Super Rugby AU. The Brumbies started off quite strong, but the Reds ended up coming away with the win last night. Brad Thorne, he kept most of his usual squad, but 2 changes in the lineup that I saw was Vunivalu on the wing. He got his debut. And Solokai Loto, he went in and he returned from suspension. He was now in the second row, not the back row. So, James, I want to talk to you for a second because we've spoken a lot about how many locks have now left Australia. And now that the Wallabies have lost a lot of their lock options to overseas contracts, are the Wallabies going to lean very heavily on Lucan when it comes to lock test match season?
I think so. I think you have to. The other contenders for the lock spots are all a fair bit younger, less experienced, and a little bit smaller and less physical. So you probably can't take 2 locks who are young and lack physicality. So you can probably just stick Lotu in one of Solokai Lotu in one of those spots, and then maybe pick somebody who is a line-out specialist who doesn't necessarily need to bash people.
Is there someone right now with Rob Simmons now gone? Is there someone that you would look at as that line-out specialist?
I'm not sure. I think Caden Neville is pushing for the other lock spot. I'm not sure exactly how good his set piece is and whether he's an absolute line-out specialist, but around the park he's been great and he's a massive pest. And we talked about that like many weeks, that being a nuisance and being a pest with some physicality and a high work rate will kind of go a long way in a test match.
Yeah, and it seems like we've lost Huller for a second, but the other player I mentioned was Vunivalu, and I think we've all spoken about him wanting to see him transition from league to union, but obviously with that code switch, there comes a transition period no matter how experienced you are in another code or in another sport. So the Flower Fainga try and the second Pete Samu try, I think defensively you could see that he's still getting his sea legs when it comes to union, at least on the technical defensive effort, just trying to read the game. So we know that he's a superstar in rugby league, but what have you personally thought about his transition to from league to union, James?
I think you nailed it. I think he made a couple of pretty costly defensive errors, which spoke to a bit of a lack of feel for the 15-a-side game. I think a couple of the times when he came in off his wing, I think that's a defensive error in rugby league also.
Yeah.
I think the more he plays, the better his reads will be. And I think he's quite a good one-on-one defender. It's just understanding the different way the game flows. But every time he gets his hands on the ball, you're like, check this out. He's the more he gets involved and the more he reads the game, I think he's going to be sensational.
Yeah, and Huller, you're back, so I'll pan this question to you about Vunivalu as well. As we heard James O'Connor say in his post-match interview, he says that he's still learning the game. Like he's coming in, he provides a lot to the game, but he's still learning. He's coming in, he's trying to do as much as possible. So when you look at his transition from league to union, what do you see specifically, Huller?
Yeah, I caught James's response, and I agree 100%. You know, you look at those league wingers; they rush in, trying to cut off their center, no matter what side you're on. And we saw that on the weekend, actually, and, last night. And wasn't the greatest move in the world. So I think, and he's when he did play union, it was from a sevens perspective too. So, playing 15, you go from sevens to league to 15s rugby. It'll take a little bit, but I honestly think that his transition is going to be really easy for him, and he'll come into his own. And I think, I believe he'll be a better winger than what Korpether was in the service that Korpether did. Only because I feel as though Vunivalu adds the under the high ball dynamic. Yeah. And I honestly think he's a stronger defender and a stronger runner.
That's saying something, because Korpether, he's a pretty hard hitter. I definitely wouldn't want to run the ball against him. But
man, you watch his highlights in NRL. I'm like, that bit under a high ball. All right,
yeah, he's crazy.
And here's the thing: this is a smart buy for Rugby Australia, because they've been missing someone like Israel Folau for a long time. Yeah. You give Vunivalu this season, and you're talking like you're going to get someone that was just as good. I'm not going to say just as better just yet, because we haven't seen him play too well, but at least under a high ball.
We know what he can do in league, yeah.
And the James O'Connor combination with him on the wing, come on now. They've been praying for this. This is something that they've needed for a while.
Yeah, I think he does have a bit of Folau, like a bit of a look of Izzy Folau, in terms of being just on a field of incredible athletes, he looks like the best athlete. And he's kind of got some top end stuff that you don't find very often. And I think if he does progress this way, because remember, Izzy Folau had it wasn't a terrible run, but he made some mistakes and it took him a while 100%. To learn rugby also. But if he kind of tracks the same way as Folau does and starts peaking at the next World Cup, it's get him a Wallabies jersey ASAP.
Man, look out.
No,
he's
going Fiji.
He's going Fiji.
At some stage, Fiji might be ranked ahead of the Wallabies, and guys will start choosing that option. I don't know.
100%. It's inevitable, bro. It's inevitable.
Okay, well, sticking with the backline theme, I do want to talk to you guys quickly about something that I noticed, and Tim Horan and Morgan Turanui, they spoke about it as well really briefly in the game, and it's the impact of not having Hamish Stewart in the fold for the Reds. So we all know how deadly Paisami and Pataya can be in that centre combination for the Reds and for the Wallabies, but unlike the Wallabies, you don't really have another playmaker in the team in the Reds. So without Stewart in that number 12 jersey, if O'Connor is taken out of play, the Reds really need, if they do need really quick, fast ball, the Reds lack a bit of balance in their backline. So James, I'll come back to you really quickly. Do you think that this is going to be something that the Reds may need to assess?
If I was picking that Reds backline on form, I'd probably drop Pataya and find a spot for Stewart. So maybe Stewart to 12 and Paisami to 13. Pataya is an enormous talent, but just his ball security is not professional level. And every time you watch him, he gives the ball away 2 or 3 times cheaply. And that's going back to the internationals, which were played at the end of last year. And everything I've seen of him this year is just ball security is not up to professional standard.
It's not even a Premier Grade level club.
Yeah,
it's atrocious.
So I'd probably shuffle everyone down and put Stewart in. And Paisami, I think, is showing some signs as a third playmaker, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Like a little left foot grubber kick for the game-winning try. I wouldn't have seen that out of Paisami this time last year. So he's kind of growing a little bit in terms of his passing game and his kicking game. And I think maybe he's most comfortable at 13 and maybe he's our Wallabies 13. So I think maybe you select him there for the Reds.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because I kind of see tendencies of it's like that pros and cons list that I talk about with Rieko Ioane. Like he provides so much on the athleticism and so much on the gameplay, but there are things that he just lacks in I think with Pataya it comes to ball security. When it comes to Rieko, it comes to just doing those traditional things you need in a center, like running through a play or things like that. So I can definitely see that. And yeah, I have similar sentiments to you. Hala, do you agree or disagree, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Pataya, for mine, looks like he's got some mild form of PTSD, doesn't want to get injured again. I think there's he lacks a lot of self-confidence. You can't be in that position and be running how he's running with that lack of ball security. He looked comfortable on the wing when they played him there because all he had to do was just, catch the ball and then try and beat my guy or catch the ball and score a try. And you know what? As much as I'm a big Pataya fan, you don't need that. Maybe Brad Thorne needs to lay the hammer down. Like, man, we're going to send you back to club rugby. We want you. Well, seriously.
Yeah.
He's the best 13 possible in that he can create something out of nothing. And I fully think Paisami, you can tell that he never got that shot he was from the Rebels, right? To be the playmaker. So now he's that. What he did, dude, that's all up here, and he's been practicing that for a while. So and if I'm Hamish Stewart, as much as I don't like the guy, I definitely agree that slot him in at 12. Pataya needs to get his confidence up, but at the same time, Hamish Stewart, I think he's figuring out maybe my time at the Reds is going to come to an end soon with Paisami now taking the reins and doing what James O'Connor probably should have done and to ice a game. And because the Paisami Pataya combination, that's dynamic. It's just one of them can't finish.
Yeah. When they're both on, that is the highest upside centre pairing in Australian rugby.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know if you're Brad Thorne, you maybe just say this is our highest upside combination. Let's just keep selecting them, keep your faith in him, and keep trying to pump him up. But at the moment, like, not good.
And then what would you say? Like Simone and Ikitau would be the number 2 combination.
Oh, mate, Ikitau, and I'm a Simone fan too. I think both the Brumby centres. I think Ikitau, he doesn't have a huge work rate, but 2 or 3 times a game he does something which changes the match, and he did it again on Friday night. I think Ikitau finds his way into the match day 23 for the Wallabies.
Yeah. Yep. He reminds me of like an Alama Ramiro for the All Blacks. Just sort of flies under the radar, but then during the game, you just like, wait, what?
Mic drop, yeah.
And the game swings. The game swings. The opposition are now looking at him, and they're playing like, oh, well, let's see what he's doing, and then react. And as soon as that happens in a back line, you're on the offensive.
He did something very freakish the other night where it was like a 3-on-3 on an edge, and absolutely nothing was happening. And he used some footwork to get in and outside of his man.
Oh, yeah. And then he like pushed it. Yeah, he pushed it out.
And then put the pass,
And then the next pass, I think, was Samu. And then that created a try out of absolutely nothing. And he does that a couple of times. No.
It reminded me of when Sonny Bill was playing sevens and he sucked in those 3 defenders and then he still got that offload off. Like it reminded me of that. It's just, things like that where you can just do something freakish. It doesn't have to be every play. Just kills it. But let's round it off and we'll talk about the Brumbies. So last night, I think they had a lot of great phase play, but unfortunately they copped the L from the Reds last night. The Reds now end a Brumbies 8-game winning streak, and I think it was like they won 17 games at home or some ridiculous stat, and they ended up losing that as well. So I personally think it wasn't anything big that lost them the game. It was just those. I think it was the little things that they could have done better. It, like the kickoff receipts I could count on my hand, I think 4 times where no one called for the ball or it just went straight to the ground, and it was just terrible communication. But other than that, I think they had a really good game. But we've spoken about this before, and you need balance when selecting your back 3. But I want to single out the 2 number 8s in this game and get your guys' opinions on who you would choose personally as your number 8 for your super team. So me personally, I would pick Samu over Wilson, because I feel he's just more dynamic on the edge and he's explosive through broken play, and he's just able to tiptoe through, like you saw in one of those tries. He's just perfect in that aspect, but also provides a lot in the scrum. So James, I'll come to you first. If you had to pick your 8, whether you're picking between Wilson and Samu, who would it be?
I think I agree that on form, Samu looks great. Samu also sometimes goes quiet when his forward pack is kind of getting bashed. And he really is a front foot kind of back rower who kind of goes with some time and space and a bit of an edge. Wilson, some of the advantages that Samu has over Wilson in terms of mobility and ball skills, Wilson is narrowing that gap. So you saw Wilson running well on the edge. He threw the last pass for the Vunivalu try under huge pressure in a 2-on-1, and he eats meters and bends a line through the middle of the field, and he's kind of reshaped his body and trimmed down a little bit and looks more dynamic. So it's a long answer there, but I think probably if I'm trying to win a game right now, you probably pick Samu. If I'm looking 2.5 years ahead for the next World Cup, or 2 years.
2 years,
2 years.
Wilson could probably be our Wallabies number 8 for the next 6 or 7 years, assuming he doesn't get a big yen offer.
This disclaimer before I ask Hulla to round us off is tickets do go on sale for the World Cup tomorrow. I am getting there at 3 p.m. my time in California, and I'm sitting in front of my laptop waiting to get. If you haven't registered yet, go on the World Cup website and register, because I'm all about those tickets. But yeah, Hulla, round us off. Who are you picking?
Look, I agree with everything James has said. I'm going to make it a little bit more specific to my reason why is we've got Samu being Totai Kefu in the first 3 to 5 years of his career, and Wilson is going to be the Totai Kefu that we all know and love that upset the All Blacks. And that comes down to confidence and experience. I think right now, someone who understands his position in the team and knows that when there's go forward, he's the icing on the cake. Unfortunately, that's the Totai Kefu when he first started, and that wasn't confident enough to be that crazy cannonball kamikaze guy first play off the ruck. What Wilson is doing is, and also being a distributor too, and that's what Kefu really changed the game for number 8s in being a great distributor, whether that's off the fringe or a second man or, right on the wing. And what Wilson is doing right now is I think he's really understanding that, his game isn't one shape or two shapes. He can be multifaceted. He's come from, I'm pretty sure he played open side for a long time. So he was really used to just that snaffling, being busy on the ball. Now being busy doesn't necessarily mean being on the ball, but being available at that ruck and maul that they now don't want to run that channel. And then when he spaces himself, you can see his ball skills and his core skills really coming through the roof. So right now, if you had to choose your number 8 for Super Rugby in Australia, you choose someone. Stats don't lie. But yeah, I agree with James. I just think Wilson's going to go down as probably a number 8 that changed the game, because I think his fitness levels are through the roof, man. That dude's work rate is disgusting, man. I'm talking all round Super Rugby, not just Australia. He works, bro.
Yeah.
I would love to see how many Ks he runs a game, because I guarantee you it's up in the 6-7 mark at least.
That would be.
And the amount of times you see a half line break get chopped down, and if you have a closer look, you'll see the number 8 just making a grass tackle from behind to cut down an attacking opportunity. And once you watch for it, you see it a couple of times a game, and he's does a lot of huge motor, huge work rate, and quality involvements.
100% agree.
All right. Well, I think that's a good way to end the episode. I'm just excited for their replay. It's going to be a great rematch. It's very interesting. But yeah,
keep your mind, boys. I'm telling you now. I told you at the beginning, Blues and Reds. I freaking told you guys we're going to see Blues Crusaders this coming week.
That's a gangster.
You're welcome.
That's a gangster's nightmare. He's going to feel so conflicted. He's going to be red and blue. There you go. So we've got four games next week. We've got the Rebels versus Waratahs. We've got the Reds versus the Force, Hurricanes versus Chief. Come on, Chiefs. And then we've got the Blues versus the Crusaders. That game is probably going to be my favorite game of it all. But boys, thank you very much for your insight, all of your analysis on everything. It was great as usual. Be on the lookout. This episode will be streaming live, but it will also be on Spotify as well. Big thank you to our sponsors, Macro Butter, Whalebird Kombucha, and OsteoStrong LA. Boys, any final words before we round it off?
Please just win, Chiefs. Come on.
Game goes 30 minutes, unfortunately.
Right? I know.
Can we just make a petition that it goes for 15?
Here's the thing. The Chiefs have collectively put together the best 40 minutes of rugby any team's produced this season, but they're across multiple games, and not exclusive to one game.
Oh man! All right, boys. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you next week for our Super Rugby recap episodes. Stay tuned. We'll see you soon.